Jin Ho checked his uniform one last time before entering the grand hall of Proxima Station. The diplomatic reception was just beginning, and as one of the newer human staff members, he wanted to make a good impression. He smoothed down his dark blue jacket and adjusted his name badge. "Remember, just smile and serve the drinks," his supervisor had told him. "Try not to talk unless spoken to." Some of these species find human conversation unsettling. The hall glittered with light reflected off the crystalline ceiling. Beings from across the galaxy mingled in small groups, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, rumbles, and melodic tones. Jin Ho had been on Proxima Station for 3 months, but the diversity still amazed him. He picked up a tray of drinks and began circulating. Most guests barely noticed him, taking glasses without even a glance in his direction. Jin Ho didn't mind. It gave him a chance to observe the various species without seeming rude. Across the room, a ripple of movement caught his eye. The crowd parted as a small delegation entered, and Jin Ho felt his breath catch. Even without the whispers that followed her, he would have known who she was. Hana, daughter of the Zeltarian ambassador. Her skin shimmered with patterns of blue and gold that shifted like sunlight on water. Unlike humans, Zeltarians could control their skin pigmentation, reflecting their status and mood. The complex pattern swirling across Hana's exposed arms and face marked her as elite even among her kind. Jin Ho had seen pictures, but they didn't capture her presence. He found himself staring and quickly looked away, focusing on serving drinks to a group of Arcturian diplomats. "Human, another beverage," one of them commanded, holding out an empty glass. Jin Ho nodded politely, trading the empty glass for a full one. As he turned, he collided with something solid. The drinks on his tray tilted, and despite his desperate attempt to stabilize them, 3 glasses tipped over, spilling their contents down the front of an important-looking Draxian official. The Draxian scales bristled in anger, their typical green color flushing to a dangerous orange. The creature's 4 eyes fixed on Jin Ho, narrowing to slits. I'm so sorry, sir," Jin Ho stammered, pulling out a cloth to offer. "It was entirely my fault." The Draxian made a hissing sound that Jin Ho's translator didn't catch. Not a good sign. "Ambassador Vex," a musical voice interrupted. "What an unfortunate accident." Jin Ho turned to find Hana standing beside him, her skin now pulsing with calming patterns of green and blue. "I believe the human meant no offense," she continued, her voice gentle but firm. "And I happen to know that Draxian formal wear is specifically designed to repel liquids. Your garment will clean itself within moments." The Draxian scales slowly returned to their normal green. "Of course, Lady Hana. No offense taken." With a final glare at Jin Ho, the ambassador moved away. Jin Ho let out the breath he'd been holding. "Thank you," he said to Hana. "I thought I was about to become a diplomatic incident." To his surprise, she laughed. It sounded like wind chimes. Ambassador Vex enjoys creating scenes. He would have demanded some token punishment, nothing serious. Jin Ho began cleaning up the spilled drinks. "Still, I appreciate the rescue. I'm Jin Ho, by the way." "I know who you are," Hana said, her head tilting slightly. "You arrived on Proxima Station 93 days ago." Jin Ho paused his cleanup. "You know that. I make it my business to know who enters my father's diplomatic territory," she said simply. Then her expression changed, becoming more curious. "Your reaction just now was interesting." "My reaction?" "Yes. When you spilled the drinks, your emotions were so clear. Fear, embarrassment, determination to fix your mistake." Her skin rippled with pink undertones. "Most beings I meet guard their thoughts carefully, especially around Zeltarians." Jin Ho felt his face grow warm. "Right. The telepathy thing. I forgot about that." "You forgot?" Now she looked genuinely surprised. "Well, not forgot exactly. We're briefed about different species' abilities, but in the moment," he shrugged, "I was more worried about getting fired than about who might be reading my thoughts." Hannah's laugh returned, drawing glances from nearby guests. How refreshing. Most people I meet are constantly thinking about what I might sense from them. A tall Zeltarian male approached, his skin patterns more rigid and formal than Hannah's. Lady Hannah, your father requests your presence. She nodded to him before turning back to Jinho. Duty calls. It was interesting meeting you, Jinho. Likewise, he replied, wondering if he had imagined the whole encounter. Later that evening, as the reception was winding down, Jinho was collecting empty glasses when he felt someone behind him. Your mind feels different, Hannah's voice said softly. Less guarded, more vibrant. Jinho turned to find her watching him with what seemed like genuine interest. Up close, he could see that her eyes weren't solid-colored like in the pictures but contained tiny flecks of gold that seemed to move. Is that good or bad? He asked. It's unusual, she replied. Most species learn to shield their thoughts as children, especially around telepaths. Humans don't really have that ability, Jinho explained. We can control our words and actions, but our thoughts just kind of happen. Fascinating, she murmured. Would you tell me more about humans sometime? There's so little accurate information in our databases. Jinho stared at her in disbelief. One of the most important people on the station wanted to talk with him. About humans. Sure, he managed to say, trying to sound casual. Whenever you'd like. Hannah's skin flickered with bright patterns that reminded Jinho of sunshine. Tomorrow, then. The observatory lounge, after your shift. Jinho just smiled nervously and nodded, unaware that this chance encounter would change the course of both their lives. Jinho held the steaming mug between his hands, inhaling the rich aroma before taking a sip. The embassy lounge was quiet at this hour. Most diplomats were attending morning briefings, leaving just a few staff members scattered among the comfortable chairs. What is this coffee substance you humans are so addicted to? Hannah asked, leaning forward with curiosity. Her skin rippled with patterns of inquisitive yellow and orange as she studied his drink. Jinho smiled. In the 3 weeks since their first meeting, Hannah had shown an endless fascination with human habits. It's a drink made from ground beans. It contains caffeine, which helps humans feel more alert. May I? She reached for the mug, and Jinho handed it over. Hannah sniffed it carefully before taking a tiny sip. Her skin immediately flashed bright purple with surprise, and she handed the mug back quickly. That is intense, she said, her face scrunching up. And bitter. You drink this for pleasure. Jinho laughed. Not everyone likes it. Some humans add sugar or milk to make it sweeter. Fascinating. Hannah's colors settled into a thoughtful blue. On my world, we drink only herbal infusions that enhance mental clarity. Nothing that assaults the senses like this. An embassy worker walked past their table, giving them a curious look before hurrying away. Jinho had noticed this happening more often lately, staff members watching them, whispering when they thought he couldn't hear. I think we're becoming a topic of conversation, he said quietly. Hannah's skin darkened slightly. Does that bother you? Jinho considered this. Not really. I'm just not used to being noticed. Before coming here, I was pretty ordinary. There is nothing ordinary about you, Jinho, Hannah said with unexpected intensity. Most beings I meet are so calculated, every word chosen to gain advantage. But you speak from your heart. Jinho felt his face warm. That's just being human. Perhaps. Hannah's eyes sparkled. What else can you show me about being human today? Their meetings had fallen into a pattern. Every few days, Hannah would find a reason to visit the human section of the embassy, and Jinho would introduce her to something new from Earth. Music had been first, Jinho sharing everything from classical piano to Korean pop music through his earbuds. Hannah had been particularly moved by jazz, her skin swirling with complex patterns that matched the improvisational rhythms. Today, Jinho had brought something special. He pulled a small device from his pocket and placed it on the table. This is a holo reader with some human stories loaded on it. I thought you might enjoy reading them when you have time. Hannah picked up the device carefully. What kind of stories? Different kinds. Some classics like The Little Prince, and some modern stories. There's even some comics, visual stories. Hannah's skin lit up with delight. This is most generous. I will treasure it. As they talked about the stories, Jin-Ho noticed a group of Zeltarians enter the lounge. They were all dressed in formal attire, their skin patterns rigid and symmetrical, the mark of high status. When they spotted Hannah, one of them approached. "Lady Hannah," the male Zeltarian said stiffly, "we've been looking for you. The Centauri delegation has arrived early for their meeting with your father." "Thank you, Manu," Hannah replied, her own skin patterns shifting to a more formal arrangement. "Please inform my father. I will be there shortly." Minu's gaze flicked to Jin-Ho, then back to Hannah. His disapproval was clear even without telepathy. "Your father also mentioned that you missed the cultural exchange with the Proxima royal family yesterday." "I had other commitments," Hannah said simply. "With the human?" Minu's skin flashed with patterns Jin-Ho couldn't interpret, but the tone was unmistakable. Hannah rose to her feet. "My time is my own, Manu. I'll be along shortly." After Minu left, Jin-Ho frowned. "I don't want to cause problems for you." "You aren't." Hannah's colors had returned to their natural flow. "Minu and the others simply don't understand why I would choose to spend time learning about humans when I could be networking with more influential species." "That's a fair question," Jin-Ho said. "Why do you?" Hannah was quiet for a moment. "Humans feel everything so strongly. Joy, sorrow, love, anger. It all comes through so clearly in your minds. It's like standing next to a fire after being cold for a very long time." Jin-Ho wasn't sure how to respond to that. Before he could think of something to say, Hannah stood up. "I must go, but I'll return tomorrow. Perhaps you could show me more of those movies you mentioned." After she left, Jin-Ho noticed several embassy staff watching him. One of them, his supervisor Da-sun, approached his table. "You've become popular," Da-sun said, sitting down across from him. "The embassy's newsfeed is full of speculation about you and Lady Hannah." Jin-Ho groaned. "We're just friends. She's interested in human culture." Da-sun looked skeptical. "Well, the ambassador asked about you this morning." Jin-Ho nearly choked on his coffee. "Ambassador Ta, Hannah's father." "The very same. He wanted to know your background, your position here." Da-sun leaned forward. "Whatever is happening between you and his daughter has not gone unnoticed." "Nothing is happening," Jin-Ho insisted. "We just talk." "Well, those talks have consequences." 3 high-ranking Zeltarian families had arranged formal meetings with Lady Hannah this week. She canceled all of them. Jin-Ho felt a knot forming in his stomach. "That's not because of me, isn't it?" Da-sun sighed. "Be careful, Jin-Ho. Lady Hannah isn't just any Zeltarian. She's practically royalty. There are expectations." The next day, when Hannah arrived at their usual meeting spot, she brought something with her, a small, glowing crystal sphere. "This is a memory orb," she explained, placing it on the table. "On my world, we use them to share experiences." Jin-Ho looked at it curiously. "How does it work?" "For Zeltarians, it's simple. We project our memories into it." She pushed the orb toward him. "For non-telepaths, just hold it and think strongly about a memory you'd like to share." Jin-Ho hesitated, then picked up the orb. It felt warm in his hand. He closed his eyes and thought about his childhood home in Korea, the small apartment, his mother cooking in the kitchen, the view of the city from their window. When he opened his eyes, the orb was projecting a small 3-dimensional image of his memory. Hannah watched with fascination, her skin shimmering with delight. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Your world looks so different from mine." Looking at his home through her eyes, Jin-Ho realized how much he missed Earth. "It is beautiful," he agreed. "I sometimes forget that." As they shared memories through the orb, neither of them noticed the newsfeed on a nearby screen, displaying their image with the headline, "Ambassador's Daughter Abandons Tradition for Human Companion. Political Crisis Brewing." The Grand Hall of Proxima Station had been transformed for the Galactic Alliance anniversary celebration. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Representatives from over 50 worlds filled the space, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. Jin-Ho moved carefully between the guests, balancing a tray of drinks. His supervisor had assigned him to service duty for the night, despite knowing his friendship with Hana, perhaps because of it. "Keep your head down and do your job," Da's son had warned him earlier. "Tonight is important for interstellar relations and for Lady Hana's future." Jin-Ho had nodded, though his heart felt heavy. Over the past 2 months, his friendship with Hana had grown into something he couldn't quite define. They had shared stories, memories, laughter. But tonight would end all that. According to Zeltarian tradition, Hana would choose her life mate at the anniversary celebration. The timing was considered auspicious, symbolizing unity between worlds. Jin-Ho had learned this from embassy gossip, not from Hana herself. In their last few meetings, she had avoided the subject entirely. "More refreshments here, human," called a tall, insectoid delegate from the Rigel system. Jin-Ho approached with his tray, offering the special blue drinks designed for species with exoskeletons. As he served, he caught sight of Hana entering with her father. She looked different tonight. Her normally flowing garments had been replaced by formal Zeltarian attire, layers of shimmering material that seemed to float around her. Her skin displayed the most complex patterns Jin-Ho had ever seen, shifting between deep blues and purples with flecks of silver. Official colors, he guessed, for a formal occasion. Ambassador Te guided his daughter through the crowd, stopping to introduce her to various important guests. Jin-Ho noticed how each introduction lingered longer if the guest was an eligible bachelor of high status. 3 Zeltarian males in particular seemed to receive special attention. They stood apart from the others, their skin patterns almost identical in their formal complexity. Jin-Ho recognized one as Mainu, who had made his disapproval of Jin-Ho quite clear on several occasions. "They're the finalists," a voice said beside him. Jin-Ho turned to find Dae-sun watching the scene with him. "The 3 Zeltarians with the symmetrical patterns," Dae-sun explained. "Each represents a powerful family. Ambassador Ta has been negotiating with them for months. Tonight, Lady Hana will choose one as her mate." Jin-Ho swallowed hard. "She never mentioned this to me." Dae-sun gave him a sympathetic look. What could she have said? That she enjoyed your company, but had always known she would choose among her own kind. Better to let the friendship fade naturally. Jin-Ho nodded and returned to his duties, trying not to watch as Hana was paraded before the eligible males like a prize to be won. But he couldn't help noticing how her normally vibrant skin patterns seemed subdued tonight, the colors muted. As the evening progressed, anticipation built in the room. Jin-Ho overheard snippets of conversation about the upcoming declaration ceremony. Apparently, it was considered a great honor to witness a Zeltarian choosing. The telepathic bond forms immediately, one diplomat explained to another. "Quite beautiful to observe, I'm told." Jin-Ho was refilling his tray at the service station when the ceremonial bells began to ring. The clear crystalline sound silenced the crowd immediately. Ambassador Ta stepped into the center of the hall, his daughter beside him. "Honored guests," he announced, his voice amplified throughout the space. "As is our tradition, my daughter Hana has reached the age of choosing. Tonight, before representatives of the Galactic Alliance, she will select her life mate, strengthening the bonds between our worlds." Jin-Ho forced himself to keep working, moving to the edge of the crowd with fresh drinks. He didn't want to watch but couldn't bring himself to leave. Ambassador Ta continued. "The 3 chosen candidates will now present themselves." The 3 Zeltarian males stepped forward, forming a semicircle before Hana. Each bowed formally, their skin patterns shifting to display their lineage and accomplishments. Jin-Ho turned away, focusing on arranging glasses on his tray. The room had grown so quiet he could hear the soft hum of the station's environmental systems. "I am ready to declare my choice," Hannah's voice rang out clearly. Jin-Ho closed his eyes briefly. This was it, the end of whatever unlikely friendship they had formed. The crowd shifted expectantly, waiting for Hannah to approach one of the three candidates. Jin-Ho heard murmurs of confusion, then gasps of surprise. Curious despite himself, he looked up. Hannah was walking across the floor, but not toward any of the three Zeltarian males. She was moving directly toward the service area. Toward him. Jin-Ho froze as Hannah stopped before him, her skin now radiating patterns he had never seen before. Bright, pulsing colors that seemed to reach out toward him. "Lady Hannah," Ambassador Ta called, his voice strained. "The candidates await your decision." Hannah turned to face the room, standing beside Jin-Ho. "I have made my decision, Father." She raised her voice, addressing the entire gathering. "Everyone wants me." Her voice echoed both aloud and telepathically in the minds of all present. "But I want you, human." The room froze in shock. Jin-Ho's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor with a crash that seemed deafening in the silence. Ambassador Ta's skin had gone almost completely white, a sign of extreme distress in Zeltarians. The three candidates stood rigid, their own patterns conveying outrage and disbelief. "This is not possible," Menu finally said, breaking the silence. "A human cannot form the bond. It is biologically impossible." "We don't know that," Hannah replied calmly. "No one has tried." Jin-Ho found his voice at last. "Hannah, what are you doing?" he whispered. She turned to him, her eyes soft. "Choosing my own path. Choosing you, if you'll have me." Before Jin-Ho could respond, Ambassador Ta approached them, his skin now under rigid control. "My daughter," he said quietly, though his voice carried in the silent room, "this is most irregular. Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "There is nothing to discuss, Father," Hannah replied. "I have declared my choice, as is my right." A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Several delegates were already moving toward communication terminals, no doubt spreading the news throughout the station. Jin-Ho stood frozen, aware that every eye in the room was fixed on him. The human nobody who had somehow captured the attention of the most sought-after Zeltarian in three systems. "Jin-Ho," Hannah said softly, taking his hand. "Will you accept my choice?" He looked into her eyes, seeing both hope and fear there. Whatever happened next would change everything, for both of them. He began, but the words stuck in his throat as the implications of her declaration crashed over him. Jin-Ho sat stiffly in the hard chair facing Director Kyung's desk. The embassy office felt too small, too warm, and far too serious. It had been less than 12 hours since Hannah's declaration at the gala, and already his life had been turned upside down. "This is unprecedented," Director Kyung said, pacing behind his desk. "No human has ever been chosen for a Zeltarian bond. Do you understand the position you've put us in?" Jin-Ho stared at his hands. "I didn't ask for this, sir. And yet here we are." The director stopped pacing and leaned on his desk. "The human embassy has received 17 formal complaints since last night. 3 from the rejected Zeltarian suitors, 5 from their allied worlds, and the rest from various species who believe this violates some cultural protocol or another." Jin-Ho looked up. "What do they expect you to do about it?" "Most want you transferred off Proxima Station immediately." Director Kyung sighed heavily. "Some are suggesting more permanent solutions." Jin-Ho felt a chill. "They're threatening me." "Not directly. That would violate diplomatic law." The director sat down, suddenly looking tired. "But the message is clear. Your relationship with Lady Hannah has upset the delicate balance of several interstellar alliances." "It's not a relationship," Jin-Ho protested weakly. "We're just friends." Director Kyung raised an eyebrow. Friends don't declare life-mate bonds in front of the entire diplomatic community. Before Jinho could respond, the office door slid open. Ambassador Chen, the head of the human delegation, entered with a serious expression. "Director, I need to speak with you immediately." He glanced at Jinho. Privately. Jinho stood to leave, but Director Kyung motioned for him to stay. Whatever this is about, it concerns him too. Ambassador Chen's face tightened. "Very well. I've just come from an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. The Procyon Alliance is threatening trade sanctions against Earth-controlled colonies." "What?" Jinho gasped. "Because of me. Because the 3 rejected suitors were all from Procyon-aligned families," Ambassador Chen explained. "They're claiming this was a deliberate human ploy to disrupt their political standing." Director Kyung rubbed his temples. "That's ridiculous." "Of course it is," the ambassador agreed. "But they need to save face somehow. Losing to a human nobody, no offense, Jinho, is a major embarrassment." Jinho slumped in his chair. "I never meant for any of this to happen." A chime sounded, and Director Kyung checked his communication device. Ambassador Tai is requesting Jinho's presence. Apparently, Lady Hannah is insisting on seeing him. Ambassador Chen looked alarmed. "Is that wise? Perhaps we should establish some protocols first." "I doubt protocols will make much difference now," Director Kyung said. "The damage is done." He turned to Jinho. "Go, but remember you're representing all of humanity in this situation now." Jinho nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle uncomfortably on his shoulders. The Zeltarian embassy occupied the most prestigious section of Proxima Station. Unlike the functional, almost Spartan design of the human quarters, the Zeltarian spaces featured organic curves, living plants, and pools of water that somehow flowed in perfect circles despite the station's artificial gravity. A stern Zeltarian guard led Jinho through several chambers before stopping at an ornate door. "Lady Hannah awaits within," he said, making no effort to hide his disapproval. Jinho took a deep breath and entered. The room was smaller than he expected, with a panoramic window showing the vast expanse of space. Hannah stood near the window, her skin pattern subdued but still beautiful. "Jinho," she said softly, turning to face him. "I feared they wouldn't let you come." "They weren't happy about it," he admitted. "Apparently, I'm causing an interstellar incident." A small smile crossed her face. "So I've heard. My father has been in meetings since dawn." Jinho moved closer to her. "Hannah, why did you do it? You knew what would happen." "Did I?" She looked out at the stars. "I knew there would be consequences, yes. But I didn't realize how far some would go to prevent this. The Procyon Alliance is threatening trade sanctions against Earth," Jinho told her. "Because of us." Hannah's skin darkened with concern. "That is more serious than I anticipated. My father mentioned political pressure, but not specific threats." Jinho ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "What were you thinking? You could have chosen any of those suitable candidates. Why risk everything for me?" Hannah turned to face him fully, her eyes intense. "Because none of them see me, Jinho. They see a political alliance, a telepathic advantage, a path to power. You see me." She reached out and touched his hand. Jinho felt a strange tingling sensation where their skin connected. "Do you understand what you're agreeing to?" Hannah asked him privately. "Our minds will be permanently linked. You'll never have complete privacy again." Jinho looked at the stars through the station window. "I've never belonged anywhere completely. Not on Earth. Not here. Maybe I belong with you." Hannah's skin brightened with happiness, but before she could speak, the door opened again. Ambassador Tai entered, his expression grave. "The Council has reached a preliminary decision," he announced without preamble. Jinho straightened, bracing himself for the worst. "A human Zeltarian bond has never been attempted." Ambassador Ta continued. "The physical and telepathic compatibility is unknown. Therefore, Before any formal union can be recognized, a series of medical and psychological tests must be conducted. Tests? Jin-Ho asked. What kind of tests? To determine if your brain can withstand telepathic connection without damage, the ambassador explained. Zeltarians are born with natural shields. Humans are not. Hannah moved closer to Jin-Ho. Father, is this necessary? I can sense his mind already. There's a natural compatibility. It is not my decision, Ambassador Ta said firmly. The Galactic Medical Authority will oversee the process. If, and only if, they determine the bond is safe for both parties, the Council will consider recognizing the union. After the ambassador left, Jin-Ho sank onto a nearby chair. Tests, he muttered. Great. It's actually a positive sign, Hannah said, sitting beside him. It means they're not rejecting the possibility outright. Jin-Ho looked at her curiously. Are you worried about these tests? What if we're not compatible? Hannah's skin patterns shifted to a gentle, reassuring blue. We are. I can feel it already. How can you be so sure? When I'm near you, your thoughts have a resonance that matches mine. She struggled to explain. It's like hearing a familiar song played on a different instrument. The melody is the same, even if the sound is different. Jin-Ho smiled despite his concerns. That's beautiful. A chime sounded, and a message appeared on the room's communication panel. Hannah read it and turned to Jin-Ho with a serious expression. The medical team is ready to begin preliminary assessments. She took his hand again. The tingling sensation stronger now. Are you ready? Jin-Ho looked into her eyes, feeling both terrified and more alive than he'd ever been. No, he admitted. But let's do it anyway. The bonding chamber glowed with soft blue light. Jin-Ho lay on a specially designed medical platform, surrounded by equipment that beeped and hummed. 6 doctors, 3 human and 3 Zeltarian, monitored displays showing his brain activity. After 3 months of tests, the day had finally arrived. Are you certain you wish to proceed? Dr. Min asked, adjusting sensors on Jin-Ho's temples. Once begun, the bonding process cannot be reversed. Jin-Ho nodded. His mouth felt dry. I'm sure. Across the room, Hannah rested on a similar platform. Her skin rippled with nervous patterns of silver and blue. The past months had been difficult for both of them. Tests, political meetings, and media attention had kept them apart more often than together. But their determination never wavered. The procedure will begin in 2 minutes, announced the lead Zeltarian doctor. Human subjects' neural pathways show adequate preparation. Telepathic dampeners will be removed gradually. Jin-Ho took a deep breath. The dampeners had been necessary during testing. Without them, Hannah's telepathic abilities might have formed an accidental partial bond. Now, they would be removed completely. I'll be with you the whole time, Hannah said softly from across the room. Ambassador Ta stood at the chamber's edge with Director Kyung and several other officials. Despite his initial resistance, Hannah's father had eventually accepted her choice. The political storm had not fully calmed, but the scientific interest in their potential bond had created a different kind of diplomatic opportunity. Removing dampeners now, the doctor announced. At first, Jin-Ho felt nothing. Then a warm sensation began to spread through his mind, like sunlight filling a dark room. He could sense Hannah's presence, not with words or images, but as a feeling of companionship, of not being alone. Remarkable, whispered one of the human doctors, watching the neural displays. His brain is adapting to the telepathic input. Stress markers are minimal. The warmth in Jin-Ho's mind grew stronger. Now he could feel emotions that weren't his. Hannah's excitement, her concern for him, her joy. The sensation was strange, but not uncomfortable. Second phase beginning, the Zeltarian doctor announced. Lady Hannah will now attempt directed communication. Jin-Ho suddenly heard Hannah's voice in his mind. Can you hear me, Jin-Ho? He gasped. The doctors leaned forward, checking his readings. I hear her, Jinho said aloud. It's like she's speaking directly into my thoughts. Try to respond mentally, Dr. Min instructed. Focus on her presence and direct your thoughts toward it. Jinho concentrated. Yes, I hear you, he thought, imagining the words moving toward the warm presence in his mind. Hannah's skin brightened with joy. He responded. She told the doctors, it's faint, but clear. The final phase of the bonding took nearly an hour. Jinho's head ached with the effort of maintaining the connection, but he refused offers to pause the procedure. Gradually, the telepathic link strengthened until it became as natural as breathing. When it was complete, the bonding chamber fell silent except for the soft beeping of monitors. Jinho sat up slowly, finding Hana already walking toward him. When their hands touched, the connection between them surged with shared emotion. It worked, Dr. Min said, reviewing the final readings. The bond appears stable and healthy for both subjects. The bonding ceremony that followed was small despite its historical significance. Only essential personnel and a few close friends attended. Jinho wore a traditional Korean hanbok, while Hannah's skin displayed patterns representing both Zeltarian traditions and elements of Earth culture she had come to appreciate. Ambassador Ta led the ceremony, his formal words acknowledging the unprecedented nature of their union, while affirming its legitimacy under both human and Zeltarian law. Afterward, as medical specialists continued monitoring Jinho's neurological patterns, he struggled to describe the sensation to curious colleagues. It's like finding a room in your house you never knew existed, Jinho explained, gesturing with his hands. A space that was always there, but you somehow never opened the door. Hannah's consciousness touches mine, but it doesn't overwhelm it. We're separate but connected. Can you read each other's thoughts completely? Someone asked. Jinho shook his head. It's not mind reading exactly. We share emotions easily and can send specific thoughts if we focus. But we still have our own private mental space. Hannah smiled beside him. We're learning together. The bond will grow and change as we do. Their stories spread across the galaxy, becoming the most discussed topic on Galactic Reddit for months. Critics predicted disaster. Romantics celebrated. Xenobiologists published papers about the implications for interspecies communication. Political analysts debated the diplomatic consequences. Jinho and Hannah, meanwhile, found themselves becoming reluctant symbols of something larger than themselves. Invitations arrived from worlds across the Alliance, requesting their presence at cultural events. Academic institutions offered research opportunities to study their unique bond. We could spend the next decade just attending ceremonies, Jinho complained one evening, sorting through the latest batch of requests. Hannah's skin flickered with amusement. Perhaps we should do something more useful with all this attention. That conversation sparked an idea that would eventually become the first human Zeltarian cultural exchange program. With support from both Earth and Zeltaria, they developed a curriculum that would teach humans about telepathic etiquette and help Zeltarians understand human emotional expression. 1 year after their bonding, Jinho stood beside Hannah in a newly constructed teaching center on Proxima Station. 20 human students and 20 Zeltarian apprentices filed into the room, eyeing each other with equal parts curiosity and caution. Welcome to the first day of the exchange program, Jinho began. You are all pioneers in a new kind of interspecies communication. Through their bond, he could feel Hannah's pride and excitement matching his own. The past year had not been easy. There had been setbacks, cultural misunderstandings, and moments when the bond itself had caused confusion between them. But they had persevered. A year ago, many believed what we're attempting was impossible, Hannah continued, her skin displaying welcoming patterns. Some said humans and Zeltarians were too different, our minds too incompatible. They were wrong, Jinho added. Different doesn't mean incompatible. Sometimes our differences can complement each other in unexpected ways. As they began the first lesson, Jinho noticed Director Kyung and Ambassador Tai observing from the back of the room. Both men nodded in approval, their former opposition replaced by cautious support. Outside the teaching center, life on Proxima Station continued. Diplomats negotiated treaties, traders exchanged goods, and travelers passed through on their way to distant worlds. But within the center, something unprecedented was happening, not just between two people, but between worlds. "Ready?" Hannah asked through their bond, as the students paired up for their first exercise. Jinho smiled, sending back a wave of affection and confidence. "Together," he replied, both aloud and in his thoughts. The skeptics had grown quieter, but Jinho and Hannah knew their journey was just beginning. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see what would happen when a human and a Zoltarian chose to bridge the space between their worlds.